Hi, everybody. Today we are going to talk about something called the distributive property and another tool we are going to use in our upcoming unit called factoring. So, if you want to take a moment to set up your table of contents to reflect what is going on down here, page 18 is where we're going to put homework 1F. Page 19 is where we are going to write our notes for the distributive property and factoring. So go ahead and take a moment. You can pause this video to adjust your table of contents, and then you can hit play again to start hearing about the distributive property. Okay, so the distributive property is an interesting property that we are going to use when we start working with what are called expressions and equations. And in class, we just talked about how the distributive property, or the word distribute, means to give something to something else. And specifically, to distribute means to give something to someone or something else evenly. So let's say, for example, that I had the problem 3 times the group 5 plus 2. Okay, I'm actually going to write this down twice so we can do a little bit of comparing. So if I follow what we just talked about in our last lesson about the order of operations, I would want to make sure I do what's in my groups first, and then do my either addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, depending on what I have in the actual problem. So this says 3 times the group 5 plus 2. So if I follow my PEMDAS rules, if I simplify what's in the group, 5 plus 2 is 7. So this problem is really saying 3 times 7, which is equal to 21. However, the distributive property tells us that this 3 that's over here on the outside, we can actually distribute this 3 to each number inside of our parentheses or inside the group by multiplying that 3 times each number in the group. So what I mean by that is, instead of multiplying 3 times 5 plus 2 simplified, which would be 7, what we can do is we can rewrite this as 3 times 5 plus 3 times 2. So essentially we're making two groups. And so if we do this, 3 times 5 is 15, plus 3 times 2, which is 6. 15 plus 6 is 21. So this is the distributive property in action. Now, some of you may be like, well, miss, it was way easier to just follow PEMDAS, which is true. In a case like this problem, following our PEMDAS rules is going to be the quickest, most efficient way to solve the problem. However, sometimes we're not going to be given all of the numbers. Sometimes we may have a variable. And so what the distributive property tells us is, if we have an equation or an expression, and let's say we have the letter A, and we have the letter A times the group B plus C. This also works if we were subtracting. What the distributive property tells us is that we can distribute what is on the outside of the group by multiplying. We can distribute by multiplying. That's the kind of math. And when we do this, we're going to get A times C plus A times B. We could have written it in this order too, if we followed the actual order that's in the parentheses. These mean the same thing. Remember, addition is commutative. So what the distributive property tells us is that we can take what's on the outside of our group and distribute it to every number or every variable or every term, what's called term, in the group by multiplying. Okay, so we're going to set up 2 examples, and then in the next video, you will see some of those examples.